the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
This is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this episode of AVNation TV's Connected. I'm your host, David Danto. We are taking a break from our normal format. We're all live in the same room, which never happens for conferencing and collaboration professionals. We're here at Zoomtopia 2019. We're in the Poly room. Obviously, you guys all know I work for Poly, but this is not a Poly show. This is an AVNation TV show, and I'm going to keep my agnostic hat on going for this. I'm joined by some of the greatest industry analysts in our space, and we're going to talk about what we've heard. It's as of this morning, it's day 2 of Zoomtopia, and we'll get through what we've heard, what we think, what's going on, and hopefully it'll be a fun conversation. So let me ask everyone to introduce themselves. Blair, starting with you.
Okay, I'm Blair Pleasant. I'm president and principal analyst of Confusion. I'm an independent analyst, and I'm also co-founder of BC Strategies, which used to be UC Strategies. I've been in the industry forever, and basically covering unified communications, collaboration, contact center, everything that falls under business communications.
Great, welcome, David.
My name's David Maldo. I'm the founder and CEO of Let's Do Video, where we cover business collaboration and team productivity. Let's Do Video is a 5-year startup, and I've been in the industry another 10 years before that.
Thank you, Tim.
Tim Bunting, Principal Analyst for Unified Communications and Collaboration at Ovum.
And hi, I'm Erwin Lazar. I'm Vice President Service Director at Emergence Research, covering the collaboration space. Been an analyst now for about 18 years, and prior to that, background was a network engineer.
Terrific. Okay, so FYI, we're recording this thing on an experimental camera, which is right there, which is doing all the switching by itself for us. Obviously, I'm out of the frame. I'm sideways. And I've also got a camcorder recording in the back, so we have a backup in case the shot's weird, and I'll kind of patch it together going forward. But you guys should look at each other and look at that camera as we go. So we are at Zoomtopia 2019, which is the third Zoomtopia, according to Eric. So 4 years ago, would you guys, in your role in your career, ever imagined having been here to cover Zoomtopia?
This is my first Zoom, so I think in those 4 years, seen such amazing progress, and it seems to have lost a lot of the competitors. I think a lot of the competitive gap has certainly got bigger. Seeing a lot more development with Zoom than I have with many others in the industry. I think that's top of mind for me, seeing the pace of innovation there.
And the fact that they came out with Zoom Phone made a big difference for a lot of us. I wouldn't have been here probably if it wasn't for that. So they've really changed their area of focus, and now they're much more broad and they're a real key part of the UC industry right now, whereas before they were kind of maybe peripheral, and now they're right in there.
Mm. Yeah, I think if you go back 4 or 5 years ago, the idea that another video or another meeting application would launch when we had WebEx, we had GoToMeeting, we had Microsoft and so many others. There was a ton of excitement around WebRTC, and yet Zoom is actually focused more on a client, and although they support WebRTC, it hasn't really been their core focus area, that a product could come along and disrupt a market that already had so many entrants trying to do the same is kind of remarkable.
Yeah, I've liked Zoom since day one, to the point where other analysts made fun of me. When they were new, when they were just a startup, when they seemed to be for small, medium businesses, like $12 a month, that's not how you do video. And everyone was like, yeah, David, we get it, you like them, you keep writing all this nice stuff about them. But I thought they had the right way to do video. Since the Jetsons, I wanted full screen video. I didn't like all the menus on the side. Now everyone has full screen video, but when I first made my first Zoom call, I don't know if I predicted this. This is an amazing event, but I knew they would be big.
Aren't those moments in our career cool, the ones where, 4 or 5 years down the road, you were proven right, and you get to go, that's just really amazing.
Not enough of them, but I love it.
Well, did you see, anybody remember the numbers? I didn't remember them. He put it up on a slide yesterday. Eric did, the CEO, in the morning, of how the growth of the people just coming to the event. This event is how many times bigger than the first one?
More than 2. I think it's about 2,600.
I think it doubled every year. I think it doubled from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3.
Would it be wrong for us to say, and I don't know what's fair, I'm trying to be fair, would it be wrong for us to say they're the leader in the space right now?
Depends on which space.
That's a very good point.
Well, think about it in terms of revenue and applications. Does anybody got, the valuation, the breadth?
Yeah, Microsoft. In our data, Microsoft is still far and away the market leader in the meeting, telephony, team collaboration space. Zoom showed up about 4th in terms of market share, behind behind Microsoft, GoToMeeting, who still has a very large installed base, even though more just recently they've kind of come back into the market with some gusto, and Cisco as well.
I mean, in terms of product, in terms of reach, in terms of customers, there's a lot of metrics we could use to define leader. But in terms of customer satisfaction, they are by far the leader, bar none. And the proof of that is go to their Twitter feed and go to the competitor's Twitter feed. Most companies, their Twitter feed is, well, it's like my Twitter feed. Here's my latest announcement. Go to my website, see my new thing. This is what I'm doing now. Zoom's Twitter feed is, and has been for years, retweeting customers saying, oh my God, I love Zoom. I just made my first Zoom call. This is all I'm going to use now. It's like no other company's Twitter feed, and as a metric, their customers just love them.
And it really goes to their, it just works. Because, as analysts, we all use, whichever meeting application the vendor that we're meeting with uses. Whenever I use Zoom, it's like, thank you. It's so much easier. And the others, you really have to try. And Zoom, as they say, it just works. And that's why people love them.
I don't like using the term leader. I don't like dealing in absolutes. I say they are certainly a leading service. But to Blair's point, of course, you've got the Zoom phone, Zoom chat as well. It's becoming more of a UC and C tool rather than just a meeting or a conferencing tool. So these market adjacencies are all converging. It used to be very easy to say UC or conferencing or enterprise social networking or whatever. They're all converging now. So it seems like it's the battle of the suites rather than the battle of the individual for want of a better word, workload. I know that's a Microsoft term, but you used to be able to carve it out very easily, but now it's all converging into this UCC as a service capability.
And interestingly, I've heard rumors from some of the manufacturers out there and some of the platforms out there that while the forward process is bundling and coming up with suites, they're all now willing to, in the background, say, well, you know what, if bundling doesn't work for you, we're going to start doing a little bit of a la carte stuff. So that, if you really want to have the meetings and the phone, but you're not interested in the team chat or anything else, they're going to, I would suspect over the next 6 or 8 months, most of the services will start to announce that they'll be available to enterprises in whatever flavor they want to take them and whatever combination they do.
That's right. And I think we've done some recent research where, in general, worldwide, we're seeing, we surveyed about 2,000 companies out there, between 4 to 6 applications, UCC applications, a typical company will have. So I don't think it's going to be a winner takes all. I think the ease of use is going to be a big driver in a lot of enterprises. A lot of people will still have Microsoft Office 365 in whatever flavour, whether or not that's E1 or E1 because it's cheaper to even have just the file storage, online file storage, than perhaps a Dropbox or a box. With the Exchange, with email as well. But I think it's up to the competitors to show where they can add value and differentiation between the delta of an E1 and perhaps an E5, where you have the calling plans from Microsoft. So there's going to be a lot of interesting discussions in boardrooms between facilities managers, HR directors, IT people, all trying to work out what's best to provision. And it's going to be the end user that I think will ultimately decide, fingers crossed, because to Blair's point, we want something that just works. We don't want to have buttons all over the place and multiple layouts and all that sort of content.
And I think something we're seeing now that I really love is that a lot of the decisions are being made by line of business people. So it's not just the IT people saying, okay, this is what you're going to use. The line of business people are saying, I want to use Slack for this, I want to use Zoom for that, I want to use, I still have people aren't saying that they have their old stuff that they want to use, but they're bringing in what works for them. So the IT people now have to adjust. So in some cases it is, you're going to get this full suite from this one vendor, and in other cases it's, okay, you can use what you want and we're going to try to support you.
Yeah. We've seen the continued battle between IT and line of business. The data we published earlier this year, based on about 645 companies, is that the majority are focused on single vendor solution from an IT perspective. So if it's not Microsoft or Google or Cisco, we don't want it. But the correlation with success, the companies actually saw a positive ROI for their collaboration investments. They were more likely to be using a best of breed strategy, where they were saying, hey, let's give Zoom a shot, or let's give another competitor a shot, because perhaps there's some benefit there in terms of improving efficiency, saving money, achieving revenue gains, or so on.
And I think this theme of the user being the new king is a big part of Zoom's success. Mm-hmm. In the old days, it was the CTO would get a demo from some great company and say, wow, this device is amazing. And they buy 100 of them, put them in the meeting rooms, and hope people use them.
Or make the proverbial golf course deal.
Yes, exactly, exactly. That's how business got done. And if the workers liked it, they would use it, and if they didn't, they wouldn't. And if they tried to bring in their own apps or their own tools, they wouldn't be allowed to. And now they've rebelled. It's just too easy to bring in your own apps and your own tools. So we can't tell them, no, you can't use that. And if Zoom went viral basically by someone sends you a link and you're in a meeting and you say, what is this? Can I get this? And now the sales process isn't someone coming in saying everyone use it. It's everyone in the company is kind of using this weird Zoom thing. Can we get licenses and make it legit? So I think a big part of Zoom's success has been, fortunately, due to the empowerment of the user.
Ironically, that was Skype's model too, right?
Yes.
Skype came in the enterprise years ago because it was a cheap way to make long distance phone calls, and then you could do it on your PC or your phone, and then all of a sudden enterprises at first they tried to crush it, and then they said, no, we need to support it. So it's just, you see this pattern play out.
What I find interesting is when you consider all the different applications that people have, and some vendors with their closed ecosystem, or we've got an appliance, which means we want to own the whole, the devices, the licenses, the software. This is where things get interesting, because you need to have a device that offers that multiple capability, that flexibility to be one thing one day, another thing another day. So you can standardize on a service, but don't standardize on a particular appliance, because if another IT director comes in or a line of business decision maker comes in and says it doesn't support this and I need this functionality, you can switch vendors and you don't have to switch out devices. So there's going to be this interesting play where you're either locked into an ecosystem, or you're going to have some flexibility in devices. So it'd be interesting to see how that all plays out, I think.
Yeah, that's actually, let's talk about that just for a minute or two, and then let's get into the Zoomtopia announcements, because I want us to talk about what we heard about over the last day or so. But, we lived in a world in our industry, last 10 years, 15 years, I don't know how far back you want to go, where the idea was I'm committing to a platform, so I'm committing to a technology, and this is what we use, and that is our standard, period. And I think we're at a point now where we're finally getting video and UC to follow what happened in the commercial telephony market, which is users don't care. Users are going to get a call from somebody that's using a different product or a different service, and it needs to work. So all of this, we're going to go brand X or we're going to go brand Y, and it's going to be just that and that's it because we've made our decision because we're never going to have an outside call, is being proved as ridiculous. And I hope that the industry is going to change, and there's going to be less of this issues with interoperability and more with the understanding that we're going to be in multiple clouds every day, 3, 4, 5 services, and we just have to be able to cope with that. Are you guys seeing that as well?
Most definitely. Yeah, it has to be like that. I mean, it's like the good old days of, oh my word, turn the clock back to PBXs, where before we all had IP licenses, whichever genius decided you need a license to run an IP phone, we all had analog phones. And you could buy any analog phone from anywhere and it would work in an analog card that fit in a PBX. And then some genius said, right, IP phones, IP license, proprietary signaling, you're locked in now. And it's a very lucrative business.
I blogged about the Carter phone decision, if you go back into history, and what Judge Green did with AT&T as a monopoly, all those things that led to the fact that if you get a phone call, you can get it from any device, on any service, anywhere, and it just works. We're going to hopefully approach that in the enterprise, and all these monopolies will sort of like break down, and it'll be the best products that are out there.
It's almost like democratization of devices is going to be an
Exactly.
interesting trend to watch, I think.
I mean, I'm still not sure we're going to ever have that scenario where you can use one app and connect to anything, or one device and connect to anything. I mean, look at what's happened in the team collaboration space. I'm probably on 6 different team platforms right now trying to juggle conversations, and it does create some frustration. We see it, some of the people who work in my company. I'm talking to this company in Cisco WebEx Teams, and I'm talking to this one in Slack, and this one in Ring Central, and we're using Slack internally, and trying to juggle across all of these different applications almost becomes a productivity hindrance. So yes, it would be great if we're say a Slack shop, we can federate with anyone. There are services that allow that from the messaging standpoint, but haven't seen anything yet from a voice and video.
Not yet.
Well, things have gotten better. A lot of these things do work together. So we can do best of breed. We can use multiple things. We can share information between the two. A lot of them are actively working on integrations. Not 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it was bad. I remember working at Wayne House Research in the lab trying to make a call between a Tamberg device and a Polycom device using the same standard, and things not working. And you call each company and say, well, they're not doing the standard right. And now they all work together. They all interoperate. And they all they all function, so we can do this sort of best of breed things. I think we might not get to the universal dialing. It was funny, I was at one of the, I don't remember if it was Enterprise Connect or Infocom, and there was a panel, and there was an exec from all of the major cloud vendors up there. There was like 12 people. And Scott Wharton from Logitech, who's not a cloud person. And I asked a question, I said, what we're talking about, if I want to call someone, doesn't matter if they're on Sprint or AT&T, they have a number, we have a universal dialing plan we agree to. So you people on this panel, after this, you can go into a back room and you can agree on a universal dialing plan. You can make it work. Are you going to? And they all kind of said the problems with it. And finally, Scott from Logitech said, David, I hate to tell you, these guys aren't going to do it. It's just not going to happen.
I don't think it's going to be a corporate decision from any of the vendors. I think it's going to be a market-driven decision from the users.
Exactly.
As soon as one or two or three platforms or companies come out with the ability to be at least a little bit more universal, we'll start a one-upping game where everybody needs to do that, and the users will win. So anyway, let's all change gear. Let's start with you because you're next to me. Top of mind, what's the top one or two things you heard about from Zoomtopia? What really moved things for you?
Well, again, I cover the voice aspect of things a lot, so I was really impressed with what they're doing with Zoom Phone. And I was in quite a few sessions, and the presenter would always ask, how many people out here are using Zoom Phone? And I was amazed at how many people raised their hands, and it hasn't been out that long. I mean, yes, this is a Zoom group, but I was really impressed with the progress that they've made, and we thought, it's going to take a long time, and no one's really going to use it because they're already using what they have, or there's so many other things out there. But people are really buying into this whole idea of, I've got Zoom for meetings and video, and I'm going to use it for voice. And I think it's being really, really disruptive. So for me, that was my big, this is really making a difference.
Good. David?
I like the new features in the meetings and the webinars. The green screen thing. They had green screen for a while, but now green screen without a green screen, moving backgrounds on green screen, putting your PowerPoints up there. I've been trying to do these things using third-party software, and it's something I figured out, but I can't recommend everyone do. It's tricky. And by adding these features to Zoom, everyone's going to be able to do this. And I've been doing webinars this way with the PowerPoint behind me as a green screen. It's so much more effective. It's so much more engaging. And I'm glad that the rest of the world will be able to do things this way now.
Cool.
I think for me there wasn't anything that really, I like listening to what doesn't get announced. So there wasn't a great deal on team collaboration, for example, chat.
There was nothing.
There was nothing. And in the main stage presentations on Zoom Phone, there are a few new features, but it was a restatement of what we already do. On the conferencing and meeting side, the pace of innovation is really quick, and I, to David's point, the sort of ability to present with a PowerPoint background I love, because if you're on a meeting, you end up with, where do I look? Because I've got the presenter here, I've got all of the gallery view here, and I've got the content here, and you end up doing this. But I think it's going to be a lot more engaging for audiences, and they're going to be a lot more present within a meeting. So for me, it's the actual pace of the innovation, and leveraging a hyperscale platform as a service provider means that they don't have to worry about back-end infrastructure, while you've got other vendors that are still worrying about, we need to engineer this, we need to put time into engineering our back-end. Zoom can just focus on the things that matter, making things simple for the end user.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, I think there were two things that really jumped out at me. First was the launch of the room systems. So the Poly X series, neat. The changing of the architecture to where most of the room kits have been, let's put together a camera, compute power, a tablet, maybe a keyboard, maybe a remote in some cases, and we're kind of building a kit that has a lot of different components versus, again, to use Cisco as an example, their model had been more focused on let's put all the intelligence into the single piece of equipment that has the camera, has audio, has compute power built in. And we've done some research that shows that approach generally leads to lower total cost of operation because there's just less moving parts. So with Poly and Neat introducing a very similar system to the Room Kit Mini that Cisco introduced for their platform, you start to see that capability now rolling into the Zoom ecosystem, and causes probably some disruptions for Logitech and Crestron and some of the other partners that are out there. So that was one. The second one, going back to Blair's point, was around Zoom Phone. Seeing the interest, seeing the real world deployments. What we have seen for organizations specifically that seem to be adopting Zoom is the phone just becomes irrelevant. All of my calls now happen in Zoom, whether they're internal or external. So why do I need a phone? I need a phone to call out to somebody if they're still not willing to use Zoom, or make personal calls or whatever. So why not just get a cheap phone service built into Zoom, and then I can eliminate the PBX. So Zoom is kind of the core Zoom meeting applications, we think is replacing the phone system versus Zoom Phone replacing the phone system. Zoom Phone just becomes kind of that, if I really need to make a call out to the PSTN, I've got that capability.
Yeah, we heard there was an analyst session, and we heard from a couple end user customers, and one said something really interesting. He said, why would I, walk into a room and cover my eyes and not see people? So if I'm going to have a call with somebody, why would I not want to see them? So it really brought home the value, and I think people are really becoming more comfortable with video. In the past it used to be, oh, I don't want to do it, I'm going to, cover the thing on my computer because I don't want people to see me. Now it's like we're doing video and we're just getting used to it. So why wouldn't you want to have video if you're interacting with somebody?
Yeah. And I think it's people like us generally, and all technologists haven't had a problem doing video. But a lot of the people that have been in the workforce for 10, 20, 30, 40 years were struggling with, I don't want anybody to see me today, or I don't look good on video, or whatever. Honestly, I think a lot of that problem being solved is simply a lot of the people that have been in the workforce for a long time aging out. And a lot of the new entries have been living with video on their devices for years, and they're just not embarrassed by it anymore.
There are some issues. I mean, our company uses docking stations, for example. So when you go into our offices and you put your laptop down, you've got no video at all because the webcam's closed. So, is your IT department going to go out and buy additional webcams to sit on your dual
We
monitors?
really hope so.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of vendors that would like that. But there are some things like that. But I think there is a comfort level, and I think as people become more comfortable with seeing colleagues, they'll just say, well, yeah, I'll just throw my hat in and I'll switch on video as well. But I think it's taken a long while to get that comfort factor right. People thinking, do I look okay? Do I, it's weird because as everyone says, we all meet together physically, and it just seems weird that we don't online.
I think the generation gap is going away with video. I don't think we just have to wait for the new younger people to come in and wait for for us to age out. It was that way 10 years ago. When I was at Wayne House Research, we had all these cameras on the wall that we were testing. And if someone my age walked into the room, they'd say, "Are those cameras on?" And if someone my parents' age walked into the room, they would peek into the room and say, "What's going on in there?" And if the kids walked in, they would say, "Oh, cameras," and they would start dancing. That's changed. My mom does not call me anymore. She FaceTimes me. It's always video. When I make calls, business calls, everyone of every age, they're all on video now. Look at YouTube now. It's not just the kids showing off, it's everyone, grandma showing how to cook apple pies. We've become a video culture.
TikTok, man.
Yes, TikTok, that's weird. But anyway, we become a video culture. Twitter is all video now. Everything's all video. FaceTime's all video. Facebook. So I don't think we have to worry about, us older guys aren't going to want to use it anymore. We're using it. We're using it at home. We're going to use it at business.
Another one of those we were right moments.
But there are still a lot of people who are uncomfortable, whatever the generation. And I know I focus a lot on user adoption. Erwin, I know you do that too. So it's still really important in a lot of organizations when you do introduce video to make sure that the end users are comfortable with it. And what I always talk about is they need to understand that what's in it for me. So why should I be using video? What am I going to be getting out of it? What's the benefit to me and the organization, and how's it going to improve the way I do things? So I think it's hard to just throw out video and say, okay, everybody's going to use it. You really do need to work on getting people used to it and comfortable, and understanding also best practices. Maybe what to do and what not to do on video. What not to have in the background. So I think it's still important to not just throw it out there, but really introduce it in the right way.
Yeah, lighting seems to be the most important. If you're sitting behind a bright open window behind you, it's just not a really
As
good
you happen to be sitting behind a window, the sun's coming up.
Not too bright, yeah, but yeah.
All right, so there were a couple of really significant announcements from partners that came out at the show, and I'm going to be really careful, and you guys know me. I'm speaking as the moderator of this show and not as the representative of a company that I work for. But we saw some old friends come out of stealth and talk about a product, and we saw a brand new relaunch of some of the Poly products. So why don't you guys talk about your opinions of those two incidents and how that's really going to change the Zoom concept, as you were talking about before, that it's no longer going to be. I love what my CMO said. She called it, we're taking Zoom away from the Tinker Toy solutions and putting them into some real good things. I love that expression. But what do you guys think? Break that down, and what are we hearing about with Neat and with Poly's announcements?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I talked about earlier, having that self-contained. I put one device in the room, I connect it to a monitor, I connect it to a power source, I connect it to the network, and I'm good to go is really groundbreaking from the Zoom ecosystem versus the kits that the other vendors have been offering. I think what we are hearing from enterprises, one of the big frustration points is they're not just one service anymore. So sort of what we talked about. I may do a Zoom call in the morning, I may do a WebEx call in the afternoon, I may do a Microsoft call, at night or whatever. That's where I think we still need to see the market evolve to that point where you give users the ability to do multiple services, and most of the vendors now, the only way they support that is if you have separate compute. You plug a laptop in, you have a PC in the room or something like that.
Yeah, I think that what amazes me is the price points. I mean, so much technology. I mean, I'm glad I'm not paying for it personally, but for 2,000, 2,500, you can get a very, very feature-rich, capable product, end of desk sort of video bar. It's really cost effective. A lot of technology goes into it, with touch screens as well for easy room control. The amount of technology that gets put into these devices is incredible, and the capabilities. But we shouldn't also sort of just look at the hardware. We need to look at the underlying features as well. So, the ability to block annoying noises, the sort of the fencing capabilities that you have, all of those features, that's where the next war is going to be. It's sort of, we've got this feature, we've got this AI capability, we've got this face recognition. We used to say seeing is believing. You need to experience these things. You can't just go out and buy them, because you're going to be playing around with these for ages. You'll buy 3 different versions of the same thing, and then you really need to experience it.
Right. Well, let's assume that the people that are watching this haven't heard the announcements. So rather than having me repeat them, why don't one of you guys just break down what we heard from Neat and what we heard from Poly, just very briefly, so that everybody's up to speed.
I can start. So Poly introduced the Studio X series, X30 and X50, designed for, again, kind of single device, pop it in a room, a couple of plugs, and you're up and running, supporting some of the Poly AI capabilities for noise cancellation and framing of users. Neat solution, very similar, at least from the room perspective, but more only a single solution for smaller rooms, as well as an interactive touch screen.
Both touch screens, X30, single monitor, 4x Zoom, X50, dual monitor, 5x Zoom, stereo sound. They look physically similar, but you definitely need to experience them.
And what about the reactivation of the Norwegian contingent in our industry? What about that?
Interesting to see OJ back on the scene again.
Quite a track record from that team.
Yeah.
So I think the real stars of the show was the Cisco ecosystem. It's in terms of the Cisco legacy. So you had Joe Burton, you had Eric, you had OJ. These are all folks who 10 years ago were together at Cisco, and it almost from the Cisco perspective, you got to be sitting there going, we had all these people. What happened?
Don't forget Eric.
Eric, I mentioned Eric.
Yeah,
okay.
And even Ron Trollope as a customer and an advocate of Zoom as well. It almost felt like the Cisco Club. It
was really interesting having Rowan talk about how great Zoom is, and when he was talking as a 5.9 customer. So I just found that fascinating. But I think as far as the main difference between Neat and Poly and what they're offering, the key is that they're both natively integrated to Zoom, so it just, from the beginning it just works with Zoom. Whereas Poly, it's going to be more of a platform play, so it's going to work with Zoom, it's going to work with Microsoft, it's going to work with all these other meeting solutions, whereas Neat is born from Zoom, and whether they're going to open it up and add more meeting services in the future is pretty unknown right now, and it sounds like maybe down the road in order to be competitive, but right now it is Zoom.
Oh, because Zoom invested.
Yes.
And Zoom did invest.
Yeah. So I think that's an extremely important point. It's the difference between a platform and a product, and a platform and an appliance. I've got my own views on which one's going to win out in the future. I'm more of a platform guy. And to Owen's point about, we're seeing these sorts of things happening. We're looking at video operability in the cloud with PepSip and other vendors there. We're looking at Nextplane and Mio from a team collaboration perspective. It feels like the industry is ripe for these platforms of interoperability, but I really didn't expect it on the device level. I thought it was all going to be appliance all the way. So I think that platform plays an interesting it's going to be an interesting.
I think we need the devices to run more than one service. On the flight over here, I was wearing a Zoom shirt because I'm going to Zoomtopia, and some guy waiting on for the plane looks at me and goes, "Oh, meet Happy." I'm like, "Okay, you've heard of Zoom?" And he goes, "Well, I'm an IT guy for an organization, and I work with it. And in every room we have Zoom and we have Google Hangouts." Connected to Link because they have a partner that's still using Link, using a Polycom device to bridge it. And so I'm like, wait a minute, so in every room you have Microsoft, Polycom, Google, and Zoom. And he goes, yeah, yeah, this is my life now. But so he has to have multiple devices.
Yeah.
And that can't go on that way.
So let's break it down in terms of the perspective of what was in the Zoom room market before. There are a lot of players, a lot of partners, a lot of good ones. We shouldn't leave D10 out of it as well. They've also announced a new appliance. I don't want to leave no favorites here, but they the play was a funky touch panel, which may or may not be mounted on the wall, a teeny compute device, Mac or PC, a whole bunch of spaghetti wires, a display, maybe a camera, maybe a microphone, depending upon how it's put together. What's it going to do to the players in the market that are doing that? Has that been made obsolete already, or is that going to still hold a piece in the market going forward as these new platform plays come out, as these new appliances that are scalable for large enterprises? I mean, clearly, if you're a one-man band or an SMB, you may just have a compute in the room, or you may have your own notebook. But when you start to get into these room systems that are scalable, has the market just changed for Zoom?
Oh.
So, yes and no, I guess. If it's a company that's 100% committed to Zoom, and they are, we're just going to be Zoom from here on out, then, the Need solution is probably one they're going to look at. But going back to David's point, there aren't a lot of companies like that. There are a lot of companies that have multiple meeting applications that have to interface with multiple ones. So if I'm putting Neat rooms out, what happens when somebody wants to do a call on Google Hangouts? So in those cases, I think you're still going to see a lot of interest in the systems that have compute, or that a lot of our clients have still laptops or Mac Minis or whatever sitting in rooms because they want to be able to go in and launch different clients. So I think that's going to be the constraint on a Neat type solution. Again, you have to be fully 100% committed to Zoom and not really have a good answer for what are you doing when that room needs to be used for a non-Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I think we've seen a number of IT departments that have almost built their own solution because they want to have the switching costs lower. And by building their own components and selecting their own components, they can say, well, at least thank goodness we don't have to buy another screen or a panel, or we don't have to buy another controller, or we don't have to buy another webcam. Oh, well, the CIO or the IT department says we're going to use this service now, so I need to swap this out. So, I think the reason why we've seen so much of a mess of components and complexity is because IT departments don't want to be caught by surprise if all of a sudden the service that they want is no longer, the service that they want.
Yeah, I mean, like take for example, Zoom getting blocked in China. All of their China customers or people who want to have conversations with China now need another solution. Well, if I only put systems in all of those rooms that only worked with Zoom, now what do I do? So
exactly.
I think that's going to be a risk factor for some.
And as long as you mentioned that, we should mention that Eric said that he's got a resolution to that problem coming up, right, at the analyst session, that they're going to have a local community page that will work in China. It'll redirect if anybody tries to hit the U.S. page. And since they're doing that anyway, he said, well, we might as well now start marketing really heavily in China. So I think that was a surprise bullet, but hopefully it looks like he's dodged that pretty well.
Mm. It's funny, things move so quickly in this industry. I still think of those kits that you say with the spaghetti wires, the old way that's so terrible. That's still new to me. I'm thinking the bad things, the old things, those old 264 systems that don't interoperate with anything, that you need an IT person to use the remote control to make the call. I've been doing evals of these kits, and I'm like, this is fantastic. There's 3 or 4 cables, but they're different colors, and you see which color each one goes into. It took 15 minutes to set up and wasn't great, and then I'm doing a Zoom call. This is new and wonderful, and all of a sudden now it's the old bad way to do. How quickly is this industry going to move on me? I can't keep up.
Well, what's interesting? You remember when Econo came out before Cisco bought them? They were offering their interoperability bridge and engine as software or as hardware.
Yeah.
And it was much less expensive and smarter to install it on virtual machines as software, but most of their sales were hardware because it cut across towers within an organization. it cut across, well, I'm not the guy who buys the PC or runs the virtual machines. I'm the guy that's in charge of the room, where the real estate people are the ones that buy the screens in the room. So getting it to a kit that's a box, that's in one person's tower, is going to be easier than, I got to put in a PC, I need the PC guys, or the PC guys, and the Microsoft guys and the network people. Who's going to own the device when it cuts across multiple towers?
Yeah.
So by making it a box, it makes it a lot easier.
And I wonder what's going to happen with a lot of the system integrators and the people who it's their job to install these rooms and make it work, because if it's so simple to do now, you just have this, one unit and, 3 cables or whatever, what's going to be the role of the system integrators and the AV people?
But that's the reason why platforms are so important, because the service providers, if you can take Zoom's network statistics and you can white label them and you can start building intelligent sort of reporting, dashboards, etc., then as a systems integrator, you can build your own intellectual property or build something that's unique to you. So this is where platform players start adding value to systems integrators. They start thinking, I can own my own intellectual property behind providing reports or dashboards or insights, those sorts of things. The other thing that I find interesting as well, we've all been talking about calls and meetings. We forgot to mention that the Poly X Studio and Neat also provide casting, so I don't have to be on a call. I can just use a room for projecting, essentially, by a simple AirPlay or connectivity through wireless presentation, which means that huddle rooms are multi-purpose. Thank goodness, you don't have to be on a call. You can just go in and present directly onto a screen. Or a
and the integrator's typical answer to what you brought up, Blair, is the idea that we're putting these systems in rooms that would not have had systems before. If you're doing a boardroom, if you're doing a huge auditorium or meeting room, there are still products. You still need the integrator. You still need all the complex programming. But what we're finding out is all the manufacturers, mine and other ones included, are talking about we want to build for the 80% of the rooms that didn't have technology, and then you're going to have some in the middle that honestly did go to an integrator, and there's a waste of money and time and expense because we can't handle it with a drop-in box. So that's on the on the bubble, but the integrators will still integrate the big rooms, and hopefully we'll fill in these smaller rooms with the new components that are coming out.
Yeah, I think you're going to have some interesting IT departments. I'm just looking at what they look at the resume. How are you like at do it yourself? Have you sort of, what do you like at putting panels on the wall? I'm just wondering what sort of new skills are going to be in-sourced and which one's going to be outsourced. Because those huddle rooms, I don't like DIY. For me, when I pick up a hammer or whatever, it's destroy it yourself instead of do it yourself. So, I'd much rather pay someone to do it properly.
We'll have to reuse that one.
Yeah, I'd like to pay someone to do it properly, but I wonder whether or not how many of those skills will be in-sourced. These things aren't difficult to install.
Or outsourced, or you make a big purchase at a large electronics shop, and how hard is it for their Geek Squad or somebody else to come in and hook up the 3 wires and say fine, buy. Yeah. So you're no longer going to these big bids. You're now just going to small mom and pop shops and smart techies that can walk in and do this.
Yeah, and the intelligence built into some of the systems is making it making it easier to install, so I don't have to worry about where I'm going to place microphones if the system has 25-foot range like the Polycom does, with the ability to do noise cancellation and pick up from different parts of the room. I just let my intelligence in the system do it.
You don't need to install software. You don't need to log on. You turn it on. It wakes up in your platform of choice how you ordered it. So it is easier. So let's get to some wrap-up thoughts here. Before we do that, David, I know you're presenting today, right? So
yes, 2 o'clock.
Well, nobody's going to see this because it's going to run. You're going to have already presented, but just tell everybody what topic you're covering so they understand what's going on.
It's going to be the next generation of webinars. What I liked in the keynote, for months now, I've been doing webinars using third-party software with Zoom that allows me to put my PowerPoint behind me and put videos behind me and present kind of like a weatherman, as opposed to a typical webinar where you're in the little box or not seen at all and doing a bullet point PowerPoint. And it's been a lot of fun for me. I think webinars could be fun instead of being something we really dread. And Zoom is making this happen by putting these features in, and that's basically what the presentation is going to be about.
Cool. All right. So anybody's interested, you can email David at Let's Do Video, and he'll send you his slides and talk.
I'll jump in a DeLorean and go back in time and watch David on
2 o'clock.
Exactly. Yeah. 2 o'clock today, but you will have seen this the next one anyway. Never mind. So this is the last part of this. I'm going to talk about the topic I love: the crystal balls. Take your crystal balls out. Let's assume we're at Zoomtopia next year. what will have changed in the industry? What do you think will be announced by then? What do you think was going to be the biggest impact of what came out this year? Predictions. Let's go in the other direction. I'll start with you. What do you think?
Go in that.
Yeah, I know. Sorry to catch you off guard.
I think I got to think about this for a second. I think you'll continue to see Zoom growing. I mean, they've got tremendous momentum. Other than Slack, I don't know of any company in this industry that people form an emotional bond with. That they, like to David's point, people don't walk up to you and say, "Oh, I love," I'm not going to pick on vendors here, but they do it with Zoom. And they do
more
it with
hate
Slack.
than love, right?
Yeah, so I think you'll continue to see some growth. It doesn't, Zoom's never really had an acquisition strategy where they're going out and buying partners. If they're going to buy anybody, maybe like an Otter or someone that gives them additional functionality that they can build in versus going to try and buy market share or so on. But I think I think you'll continue to see other competitors consolidate and try and figure out what can we do to make our systems better. And that's been the big impact I've seen out of Zoom, is that the competitive solutions have gotten an awful lot better over the last couple of years.
It's good to have competition.
Yeah, that pace of innovation is just going to accelerate, and I think you're going to get a crisis of prioritization with other vendors that have got multiple feet in multiple camps and multiple solutions. It's, where do I put my engineering resources on my telephony platform that's on-prem or in the cloud or hybrid, or my conferencing? Do I do this? Do I do this? Do I support this platform and this platform and this platform? There's going to be a lot of traditional vendors that are going to be caught in this crisis of prioritization. And I think the pace of innovation is just going to accelerate with cloud-based services. So we're going to see this acceleration and breakaway from the innovators. And you innovate in the cloud, you use hyperscale platforms as service providers, you can do that because all you need to focus on is the end user and the functionality that they want. And to Ed's point, they don't have customers, they have fanatics. Yeah. It's great to see that sort of that real demand and that thirst
zeal.
For zeal. Zeal's the right word. Yeah.
Zoom, zeal. We'll have to let Eric
There you
know
go.
about that one. David?
One thing, and I think I'm already starting to see it, is our focus is going to change a little bit. There's two things that happen in business meetings. One is communication, seeing and hearing the other people, and the other is productivity, getting work done. And up till now, we've been totally focused on the communications part. Is the video good? Is the resolution getting higher? Is the frame rate getting better? Is the audio better? Can we get rid of background noise? All these things to make sure the communication aspect is good. And the productivity, well, that's whoever's meeting, that's your job to get the work done. Now that these tools work, you're not going to blow my mind if you say, hey, look at the reliability of our new system. I haven't had a bad call in years. The reliability's been there. You're not going to blow my mind if you say, look at the quality of this call. That happened 5 years ago. The quality's amazing. Now I want to see, okay, we get it. Video works. Help us be more productive in meetings. And we're starting to see that. The transcripts. Oh, I love that. And Zoom's had that, and other vendors are having that. I don't have to take notes in meetings anymore. So instead of focusing on taking notes, I can focus on getting work done. Those sorts of features, and just a focus on what happens in meetings, I think is going to be the next phase of our industry.
I think that's great. I mean, there is diminishing returns in terms of how much effort do I want to put on improving the video, and that productivity is interesting. One thing I do not like though is voice to text being passed off as AI. There's no context. If we're doing a transcript of this and we talk about UC, it will be UC as opposed to unified communications. So I don't like that sort of let's jump on the bandwagon that
I'm with you on that. One of the I want to be kind, and I don't want to say the cheesiest announcement, so I won't say one of the cheesiest announcements. But one of the things that came up out of the show was this idea of universal translation, which is now supported as long as you have translators standing there on microphones.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I would have really put that one in the keynote.
No, that Star Trek universal translators is a few years off yet, isn't it?
AI is doing some of the translation, but not that good, so maybe we should just wait for it.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Blair, your predictions.
So I think we're going to see the ecosystem keep expanding, with more partnerships, more integrations. They've got the marketplace, so I think we're going to see that continuing to grow. Because one thing a lot of us talk about is the value of having communications embedded in the applications and the workflows that people are using. So, Zoom and Slack have a relationship, and Slack is really huge on integrating into the workflows and applications that people use. And I think we're going to see Zoom moving more in that direction, especially with Zoom Voice. or Zoom Phone, because that's very important, is, just from the application you're in, whether it's Salesforce or whatever, being able to access these capabilities. So we're seeing the beginnings of it, but I think next year we're going to see, that marketplace, really grow, and that ecosystem is going to be much bigger.
Okay, guys. Well, great. Thank you. Let's go around one more time with you, starting, Erwin. Just how can people get in touch with you and reach you if they want to talk to you?
Sure. Best way to contact me is on Twitter. I am Lazar, or at nemertes.com, nemertes.com.
Myself, T Banting on Twitter, or tim.banting@oven.com.
Let's Do Video on Twitter or letsdovideo.com.
On Twitter, I'm bplez, BPLEZ, and my email is bpleasant@confusion.com.
Terrific, guys. Thank you very much for being here. Let me slide over again so I can just kind of get into the corner of the shot. I hope this, we'll look at it. We obviously haven't seen it as we're recording it, but the amazing technology that this camera is doing, focusing on people. I'm David Danto for AVNation TV for the IMCCA. Thank you for watching Connected. We'll be back again the next time we feel like it. And